G'day everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Now the past 24 hours or so I've been crying myself to sleep after Callum Mills injured himself again. Twice now. Off the field. Anyways, enough about the Swans, they're shit. I'll tell you what though, two teams that aren't shit are the Collingwood Football Club and the Brisbane Lions. They're both going to be facing each other in a grand final. Should be a fantastic spectacle. First versus second does not get better than this. And in today's video, I'm going to be going over my tips and predictions for that grand final. Also going to be including who I think will win the Norm Smith medal. And yeah, just really talking myself through this, who I think will win. Again, I'm still pretty undecided with this one. You know, two teams that have been up the top of the ladder pretty much all year, so it should be a cracking game. Bloody keen for it, but yeah, let's get into this video, shall we? Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you do go on to enjoy. But first, let's kick it off with my tips from last week. So, the tips from last week were pretty good. 2 out of 2. So, I did get both prelim finalists correct, or the winners of those games absolutely spot on. Did go with Collingwood, and I just backed them in because of that home field advantage. It's hard to go against Collingwood with a lot of these games because you just... that crowd advantage they get, you know, that extra, that 23rd man, it really does give them, you know, that boost, and honestly, it probably gives them that 2 to 3 goal advantage. And let's be honest with how they did play, it was definitely in effect, you know, just the relentless plays. Defensively, they were very good, and they were sort of been more able than the Giants have played on their terms. Both clubs had some great momentum throughout the game. It was a fantastic prelim final. The Giants very unlucky, but you know, that fourth quarter they did go begging with some poor decision making inside 50. Collingwood were able to intercept well, rebound off it quickly, and yeah, get the win. 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐿𝐼𝐴 pretty big. Daicos was great too. �crispin fantastic. So deservedly going through to a grand final, the best team all year. And the Brisbane Lions, well, they continue that streak. They haven't lost at home this year, and they got the win, you know, pretty comfortably in the end against Carlton. They did have a terrible start, of course, the Blues. Credit to them, their year was fantastic, but yeah, just outclassed by the better team of the Lions. They've been challenged a lot of games this year at the Gabba, but they've just been able to stroll away with their classy forward half and midfield group. And after quarter time, I think it was like 77-13 the score. So let's be honest, they really cruised home to victory, even though it was only a 16-point margin. But yeah, both teams have plenty of strength. So yeah, as neutrals, let's hope this is a close grand final. Let's get into the grand final tips and predictions. So as I say again, the two top teams in the competition facing it off in the last Saturday of September. Yeah, so right off the bat, as I just said just then, I think just when you really look at both teams' strengths, this should be a close grand final right off the bat. You know, maybe because of Collingwood's home field advantage, that could absolutely flog them. That could always be on the cards. It's hard to see it when you look, you know, on paper and you look at all the stats and whatnot, but mentally we always forget about it, and you can't predict mental things. So I think, you know, it has to be acknowledged, this definitely has a chance of being an absolute blowout. You know, look at last year, for example. Not really many people were predicting Geelong to... some were predicting them to win well, but you never really predict absolute blowouts. But I just think with Collingwood's style and the way they start games, especially the way they start games, you know, they can easily kick the first 5 goals and just blow the margin out and, you know, win the game comfortably. So that's on the cards, but I just don't think it will happen. I think the most important thing from the Brisbane Lions perspective is you've just got to weather that storm, weather that early Collingwood wave of pressure from the first 15 minutes of the first quarter or so, because you just know Collingwood right off the bat with that home crowd, really, you know, just at the MCG, just all year, they've been able to start games really well off. Just look at that first quarter against the Giants. Collingwood's intent and pressure around the footy was the best I'd seen any team play in that first quarter of football. So Brisbane have to match that, and we all know the strengths of Brisbane. Their midfield group, one of the best in the competition. 2-time Brownlow medalist 𝐼𝐴 𝐿𝐼𝐴 definitely will lead that group. You do feel one of the cleanest plays in the stoppages, and they're one of the best stoppage teams and centre clearance teams in the comp. You know, I think if you're able to get a bit of that advantage against Collingwood in the midfield, that's where, you know, you can sort of start to play your strengths. So I think definitely one of the main pointers for Brisbane is to try and get on top of that midfield group. 𝐼𝐴 𝐿𝐼𝐴 definitely been bossing it this year. Josh Dunkley's been the very underrated player in there. He's an accountable player. Usually goes on, probably will go on to go, you do think, and then 𝐼𝐴 3-0 probably matches up on someone like a Pendlebury. But yeah, it's just about that ground ball. The ground ball game is very important, especially in the grand final. You know, a game just built off moments and 50-50s. Whoever's tougher, you know, probably does win this game of football. And, you know, it's just, yeah, just those ground balls are really important to get. So, yeah, as I say again, the Lions have to really try and break even, or even try and get a quick start, because Collingwood, one of the best, fastest starting teams in the comp, especially when you look at their finals games. They've always been able to kick at least the first 2 goals of the game, with that big home crowd, with that big crowd, especially come grand final day, or with that grand final atmosphere, that can really rev up the Pies. So of course, their main strengths is just their ball movement, their cohesion when moving the football, their ability to really get the clean hands out of congestion. They're one of the best sides in comp, being able to get it out cleanly, being able to transition the footy from defensive 50 and just get it inside 50 to dangerous spots. Now, though, without Dan McStay, let's be honest, Dan McStay really was the main reason why they did win that prelim final. Very, very good contested mark. So it's a big responsibility, and probably Mason Cox or probably 𝐼𝐻𝐿 to try and get those big grabs. But, you know, if they're not going to be able to do it in the air, you know, I think they have to really rely on the way they move the footy, because they get a lot of those goals from those, you know, great scoring change of being able to move it with transition and then pick apart targets inside 50, sort of, you know, catch the defence napping off the turnover, off that quick movement. That's just, you know, the way that the Pies can really be damaging. So off that too. Another area definitely off intercepts. When you get Darcy Moore peeling off opponents taking intercepts, when you get Quinnell intercepting, they're a side that's very good in the air. And I think that's an area where they really need to be good on Saturday afternoon. And when you do intercept it, you go quick. You know, this is a Pie side that when they go quick, they're damaging, they're scary, and they can get a lot of points off that, of course, as well. And then you know, they're smalls as well. They can be dangerous. Bobby Hill, of course, Jack Given, I think should be the sub. I think he's the perfect sub option, because he comes on maybe the last 15 minutes, last quarter, instant impact with just anything he does. And of course, Jamie Elliott is a player you can't you know, look away from. He can always cause a bit of damage too. But yeah, just with that quick ball movement, the home field advantage, I personally feel as well. The fast starting, the relentlessness in defense as well. You know, they're very, very good as a back six. They're always very good at those 1%ers, and I just think they always have that mental edge against opponents from when you have watched them in close games this year too. So yeah, they do boast a lot of advantages. And then when you do transition over the Brisbane Lions side of things, well, as I did say, very good midfield group. Collingwood have definitely upped their game with the midfield this year. They've been a far better side in the contested game, in and around the stoppages. But yeah, it's the responsibility, I think, of those Brisbane Lion midfielders, also on top of Neil and Dunkley sprinkling in with 𝐓𝐴 𝐿𝐿. He's playing a little bit more half forward. Also got your likes of Devon Robertson and Zach Bailey, a few of those midfielders that can roll in there. Jared Berry, of course, as well. But it's that main midfield group's responsibility to get on top of those clearances. They've been a top 4 clearance side in the competition this year, so they really need to get on top of that game, I think, and get plenty of supply. I think Brisbane have been a top inside 50 team in the competition. They've been able to get a lot of those inside 50s and win those counts. So yeah, midfield, definitely an area to really get on top. As well, they can move the footy really good, especially at home at the Gabba this year. They've been able to move the footy really well from defensive 50. So if they can sort of settle themselves in that first quarter and try and get the game on their terms, be really strong as a back six. You know, you have a look at the likes of Harris Andrews. You have also Darcy Gardner, who was fantastic on his game back in, and Ryan Lester. Those 3 core accountable players have to be on top of their game, and they have to really transition the footy off that, because they're sort of their focal points on the way they move the footy. And definitely one of the biggest strengths of the Lions is their turnover game. When you've watched them play, they are such a damaging side off the turnover, and I think when you do identify Collins' weakness is their ability to try and catch them napping off the turnover. You can, you know, move it quick and sort of get those little balls out over the top and little passes inside 50 over the top and catch them napping, which Brisbane are very good at. They're able to move the footy fast and get those kicks over the top to the likes of Charlie Cameron and a few of those small dangerous forwards they do have, and kick those goals. That's an area where they can be very good too. As I did say earlier in this video, the Lions have definitely been challenged a lot this year. I think compared from last year, they've been a more of an accountable team, honest team, and yeah, when they have been challenged, they've been able to overcome deficits and get back into games of football. Even look against the Blues, they had a really poor start. They didn't get the game on their terms, and usually when we've seen that with past Brisbane Lions sides, they just tend to lose the game. But they've been able to get on top in that area, especially in the second half of the year, get a lot of close and gritty wins, which is definitely, culture, building that winning culture, I think, for a side like Brisbane. And yeah, when you do move over to Collingwood's side of things, I think they've got to really try and eliminate Brisbane's ability to win the footy in and under, get a lot of those ground balls themselves. And yeah, just really cause an impact, crush it forward. They sort of like to play that Richmond sort of style sometimes. Just keep on crushing it forward, keep on getting those numbers, get the role plays really involved. 𝐓𝐴 𝐼𝐷 especially can really burst through. A few of those forwards can bob up, and they've been actually quite good with scoring off stoppages. We've seen that with a few of their finals games the past few weeks or so. They've been very dangerous side inside 50s. When I do look at Brisbane, I think an area where they have been able to beat Collingwood the past 2 times when you've watched them win their games of footy, especially that one against against them at Marvel. Their smalls. I think if their smalls can really get involved, even like your 𝐼𝐷 and Lincoln McCarthy, these are the missing the plays that you sort of tend to forget about. You think, oh, it's all Charlie Cameron, all that whatnot, but it's even Zach Bailey too. I think Zach Bailey is one of those plays, even alongside 𝐼𝐷 and a few of those types, where they don't need 25 touches. They could have 11 or 12 or 13 or 14, but if they're impactful with it, when the ball hits the deck, I think the onus is on the Brisbane Lions smalls to win that ground level game. And restrict Collingwood off the intercepts. As I said earlier, Collingwood, very good side off the intercepts. If you just restrict them, you bring it to ground. If there's a situation where Moore's about to take the intercept, as long as you just win that to ground and sort of set up that chaos footy at ground level, if you can win that when the ball hits the deck in your forward 50, Charlie Cameron, Lincoln McCarthy, those types win that and score off it. That's basically how I will score a lot of their goals off transition, off the turnover, and yeah, when the ball win that ground level game in their forward 50. I think that's where Brisbane are very dangerous, and they've been able to prove it against Collingwood. And when I think from their runs and what they need to do to beat the Lions is not only get on top of that midfield game, but yeah, just really just show that mental upside. I think they, as I said just then or just before, they just have that mental advantage. I think if they can just really get under their skins, kick the first 3 or 4 goals, which I think they're very capable of, show a bit of dominance from stoppage, and just try and negate Harris Andrews. We all know Billy Frampton is coming into the side, so he's probably going to just play maybe not necessarily a tagging role, but just play accountable, shoulder to shoulder on Harris Andrews, not allow him to intercept, not allow him to control the game. Put them on the back foot early. I think that's where they can really get the advantage, Collingwood, and maybe win the game off it. And yeah, I just think you just don't let Brisbane's foot skills really dictate the game. You want to put the game on your terms. That's what Collingwood have been able to do really well. Of course, all the talk is with Brisbane, they can't win the MCG. I mean, that's fair enough, but they've only played there twice this year. They played, of course, against the Hawks. Yes, they lost, but so did Hawthorn, and they really should have won that game against Melbourne. They were fantastic, right, by 3 or 4 or 5 goals. Really should have won that game of football, but I think they will be okay. They've beaten Collingwood. They have the wood on them. So yeah, as I said before, if they're able to just win that ground level game in their forward half, not allow them to be damaging off the intercepts, and for Collingwood, if they can just get that quick start, win that midfield battle over the likes of Neil and Dunkley, and don't allow their back half to intercept with the likes of Andrews and all that whatnot, and just be relentless like they've shown all final series. If they're defending like they are from their past finals games I've seen, I think they are a shoo-in, because they are just relentless in defence sometimes. They don't allow teams to score in certain situations, and they're a very well drilled side. When the moments matter, when the moments are close, they just close out games so well. They win territory battles. So I think that's another area for the Lions, is to try and win that territory battle, of course. I'll quickly say who I think could be the game changers for both sides. I mean, Cadeem Coleman can be the X factor possibly again, but I'm thinking of someone like a Zach Bailey. He's, I think, their fire starter. He can just read it from, if there's a bounce ball and there's a loose ball, he can just read it, quick smart. He can just read it quickly, get first possession, and kick a goal off a step. I think he's one. Cam Rayner, of course, he's able to kick a few goals. I just think they need their forward half winners, I believe, Brisbane. I think they can get on top of the midfield game, but they need those forward half players to kick those goals from your 55, 45 out, show a bit of dominance off stoppage. And then when I'm looking from the Collingwood perspective of things, I can't go past Shaun Dux. He could not be tackled in that prelim final, so I think he's a big time player, has earned the money for this. And then if you've got Daicos on the outside, he doesn't need to kick goals or anything or like that. He's just got to get those handball receives and generate it forward. But Dux is, I think, the player that can win the ball in and under and really show impact on the outside and maybe kick a goal or two. So yeah, there's some important players there. Just always those X factor plays, but we always forget about grand finals. It's always a team thing. It's always the role players' responsibility for both clubs. So yeah, I think it's going to be a cracking grand final run. There's pretty much me chewing the fat with it. And who do I tip? I still don't know. I still really don't know. But the reason, I'm not going to just try and, take a random tip. I have obviously put thought into it, and I am still leaning to Collingwood. I did tip Collingwood in my finals predictions, and I'm just going to be sticking with that. It's hard to go against the Pies with how they play at home, with that advantage of the crowd they do have, the fast starts they do have, and they're such a well-drilled side. They finish games really well. When you watch them, they've been relentless in defence, and I think with that, and especially the rebound, I can just see them winning a flag off it. It's just, the synergy they run, the mental side of things are in check. I think Brisbane are going to be a great opponent for them and a great challenge, and I think in a few technical areas, like in and around the footy, maybe efficiency, that can really get on top. But yeah, I just think, off that belief, and definitely I think they are, in a way, maybe the better side, of course, as well. I reckon Collingwood will win the grand final for 2023, and what the margin will be, cagey affair, but I reckon this one maybe will be kept at arm's length. Collingwood win maybe a closest game, but I reckon they'll get it done and win by a tick under 3 goals. We'll go Collingwood by 17 points, and yeah, I reckon the Pies will take home the chocolates and lift the Premiership Cup on Saturday afternoon. And now we'll quickly go over who I think will win the Norm Smith medal. Just a little extra here. I did give this a little bit of thought. I think, the obvious ones, if Collingwood wins, we all say 𝐴𝐿𝐻, we all say Daicos. I definitely think that's fair enough. But I am going to be going with Jack Crisp. I think this is probably one of the safest selections for your Norm Smith, because people just forget about him. He is such a consistent player, but especially he's a great finals player. He's a great big time player. He's been able to kick goals the past 2 finals. He's been great and consistent throughout the whole 4 quarters, and he can be a ball magnet. And I think he's an underrated player on how they move the footy. He's a great kick usually in that midfield. So I think if he's able to pick apart options forward of centre and Brisbane's defence and maybe get a goal or 2, maybe a goal and 25 touches, I think he's a great chance for the Norm Smith medal, and I'll pick Jack Crisp. So yeah, to recap, I reckon Collingwood by 17 points and Jack Crisp for the Norm Smith medal. So everyone, there is me yapping on for over 20 minutes about the grand final. Again, so much love from these both sides. I've loved how they've played this year. Brisbane haven't lost at home. They've been a brilliant side of moving the footy. They've shown dominance in the midfield, and they've been a much better defensive side, and I think mentally a more drilled side, of course. But it is hard to go past the Pies, the best team all year. Definitely have the crowd behind them, and yeah, I think this is going to be just an absolute ripping game. Of course, maybe even if you do want to comment, maybe what the quarter time, half time, 3/4 time, and full time scores could be. Yeah, love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments, as I always do say. But yeah, keen for the game. Obviously going to be streaming it, so yeah, if you've got nothing to do Saturday afternoon, if you're watching it alone, maybe come by and say hi on the stream. It's going to be an absolute ripper. Best luck to both teams. I'd love to see them both win, but there can only be one winner at the end of the day. That's enough yapping from me, of course. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you did go on to enjoy. And until next time, I'll talk to you later. See you later, fellas.